End of last year, we embarked on a process where we said, what's the next phase of growth for Mediaocean? And we looked at an IPO, we looked at strategic investment, we looked at strategic partners or selling to a strategic. And in the end, my recommendation to the board was to sell to a company called Vista Equity Partners. And what's unique about Vista is they only invest in vertical software and data companies. And they're operators as much as they are private equity finance guys. So 200 employees, 100 of which operate a McKinsey-like consulting group that only exists for their portfolio companies. So in the past month, we started implementing all of the processes, technology, and infrastructure they have at all their technology companies, which is super exciting for me. And then I think the other piece is I love what I'm doing. I love Mediaocean. I think we have a tremendous future, but I also don't think we're moving fast enough. So for me, I wanted to get a partner that was going to help me accelerate our business in ways that I always knew we could, given our strategic assets. And I think while we've executed well over the last few years, we can execute even better. So it just aligned well that I got a partner that's going to help me and support me in doing that. Vista does things with a level of rigor that is kind of second to none. So the answer is kind of D, all the above. We funded the acquisition with a significant amount of debt. We're going to get very aggressive in terms of acquisitions. We're going to get very aggressive in terms of developing new products and overall market development. And we're gonna hire a bunch of people as well. So we're looking at everything that we're doing. How do we accelerate it? Which is exciting. Historically, and I think how people think of Mediaocean is the legacy Donovan Data Systems business. We are workflow for ad agencies, and that's certainly kind of right in our wheelhouse in our core business. But when you look at the trends of what's happening, the upfront market, primarily through broadcast, is moving more towards spot markets, and spot markets are moving more towards real-time markets. And as those things happen, a few things kind of trigger and affect our business, which is planning and buying are now very, very linked. It's not like planning is done over here and then buying is done over here and analysis here. You have to be able to plan, buy, and optimize all in one system. So so strategy number one is how do we build software to enable planning, and then how does that shift right into buying? Number two is, when markets move more towards spot or real time, supply and demand need to be able to talk to each other. And they don't necessarily do today for linear media. They do in digital. So, the next thing is how do we think about supply solutions as a strategy to help our agency partners manage their business more effectively? So that's strategy number two. Strategy number three is we're the only technology or software company that's across all media types. And we all know, just looking at my children and how they absorb media now, it's not by turning on the TV, right? It's by putting on Netflix, watching things on their tablets or iPhones, and that level of convergence is significant. And we talked before about our partnership with Videology and our deal with companies like Pandora and Spotify and iHeartMedia. It's all around how do we help with media convergence, because the way you bought 20 years ago is very different from the way you're going to buy over the next 20 years. And we're building those convergent solutions to be able to help the market, which is our third strategy.
And Bill, I wanted to ask you about the notion of addressability and where you guys play and how that might develop. We've been speaking to a lot of people at Sky, at AdSmart. It's extremely addressable with the satellite. There's more and more happening here through satellite, through Cablevision, through other MSOs that allow addressable ads to be delivered on the household level. Where do you see that's going, and what could be your role in that?
Yeah, sure. So again, I'll point to our partnership with Videology, where TV and video have to come together in one marketplace design. The double-edged sword for video is you have all the attributes of digital, but you also need to think about the way TV is bought and sold, and the curation of content that exists in what creates an amazing brand marketplace. So we look at our roles as kind of systems integrators on behalf of the industry and the ecosystem. So if things like addressability, if things like dynamic ad insertion, if they become super important to the industry, we will figure out who the best players are. We'll work with our agency partners to prioritize them, and we'll integrate them into our workflow solutions. So we're trying to stay on top of all this. There's a lot of moving parts, as you can imagine. I spoke at Adweek yesterday, and the conference right before me, or the panel right before me, it was amazing because all they were talking about was ad blocking, iOS 9. It is incredible. I think as it relates to digital, things like ad blocking, things like viewability, things like fraud, are going to almost feels like there's going to be a step back as it relates to digital display and mobile. At the same time, it seems like video is exploding, and it's almost like there's not enough good supply for video. And clearly, those markets that look and feel more like TV will inherently benefit, because it's not just around the direct response dollars, but it's really around the brand dollars. So what I look forward to is, who's gonna be thinking about the next solution as it relates to brand marketplaces. How are the creatives going to change? Because I don't think the 30-second spot translates to online video. Again, I see my kids, if they're forced to watch a commercial, they get visibly frustrated. And we always talked about kind of that lean back experience versus the lean forward experience. Is there a lean back experience that really creates an emotional brand experience to consumers? And how will that evolve? And then, of course, when it comes to Netflix and all these other solutions where there isn't that standard TV commercial, how are we going to reach those consumers? Because again, my daughter, if you're a marketer trying to reach my daughter, good luck, because all she does is consume kind of TV inventory through Netflix. So again, we're talking to broadcasters, we're talking to marketers, we're talking to agencies, we're talking to all the constituents, we're talking to intermediaries, because at the end of the day, we also believe there needs to be a neutral platform for the industry. You can't be a seller, you can't be a buyer, and we truly are that neutral system. So we're talking to all the constituents, we're seeing what the trends are, and whatever pops, we're going to look to integrate into our systems.